So the lab was to create a rectangle. Well, ultimately you guys went through most of the lab, so I won't really go over that, but you'll be able to look at this to figure out like all the keys. To show and hide the rectangle, which is the one that most of you guys are stuck on. So it's actually quite seemingly simple on the surface, but it actually requires you to think about things a little differently. So if I want the space bar to do something, right, I'm going to say like, I'm going to create a shape here. I'm just going to use a rectangle. I'm going to use this rectangle. I'll use a circle. Circle's fine too. If I want spacebar to hide and unhide this circle that I'm drawing, I'm pressing space, right? Every time I press this key, I want to hide and unhide. The problem is that you can't just tell SFML, oh, hide your shape or unhide your shape. The way that you hide and unhide things is if you want it to be hidden, you just don't draw it. And how do you not draw this thing? It's right here. Well, you could wrap it in an if statement. If I wrap this in an if statement like if false, like so, this line of code will never run, which means my shape will never draw. Even though everything else is the same, this if statement here will say, hey, skip over it. Like if I put a breakpoint right here, and I step, it's going to skip right over that whole block and go right to this window here, right? So if instead of always skipping false, I need something that controls whether it draws or not dynamically. So I'm going to make a variable called shouldDraw. I'm going to set it to true by default. This variable here is just a Boolean. All it's going to do is going to say, hey, should I draw this thing or not? And I'm going to set it to true. So when I set it to true by default, it's going to draw my circle, right? So I have my if statement here to draw my circle. Yeah, I have a green circle. Cool. If I go back and I set this thing to false, the circle won't be there. All I'm doing is changing the value of the variable, right? So the circle isn't there anymore. The best part is that this variable I can change dynamically whenever I want to. And guess what? I can change it here when I press the space bar. So if I press space bar, I can set this thing equal to false. So it's currently drawing right now, and I can set it equal to false, right? So now when I press space bar one time, it'll hide it. So I'm going to press space bar once, and it hides it because that variable went to false. Pressing spacebar again is just continuing to set that variable to false. So what I need is a way to flip-flop this variable back and forth between true and false. So one of the simplest ways you can do is an if statement that says if I'm currently drawing, then hide it. Otherwise, do that. This is saying that if I'm currently hiding it, set it to true. And I'm going to show you another way to simplify this a little bit more. So now when I have this set, every time I hit spacebar, it hides and unhides the circle. The other way you can do this is, this thing is a Boolean. You can do this in one line. This whole if statement here, where if I'm drawing it, set it to false, otherwise set it to true, can be done in one line. If you can set should draw equal to not should draw. This right here is the standard one line how to toggle a Boolean back and forth. This will set equal to whatever it's not. Right here. So remember this guy right here, because you will use this to flip a variable back and forth. Okay?
I'm so mad I was right there and all it was that.
All it was, yeah. That's why I'm saying it's not complex, but it requires, it's a little bit difficult to think about logically, right? You have to combine all these pieces. Don't worry, you'll have your chance to do more of this stuff. All right, so now let's get on to lab number 2. So I'm going to talk about mouse input now. So mouse input is also a really important part. This is very similar to keyboard input. You have 3 different sets of events. One that I pressed the mouse button, one that I released a mouse button, and one that I'm currently holding a mouse button. But in addition, mice are kind of unique. They can move around while you're pressing keys. So you also have interesting events that tell you whether the mouse is currently moving or not, as well as events for I'm using a scroll wheel or not. Okay, those are more events. They're just events just like the keyboard though. So let me show you. I'm going to show you a mouse input. So this is what the lab is. I'm going to show you 2 things. I'm going to show you how to track whether you pressed a mouse button or not, as well as how to track where the mouse currently is. So inside this event loop, so I have this event loop here, I get a bunch of mouse events. So I'm going to show you how to do the same thing that we did for keyboard, but with the mouse. So if event.type is equal to SF event mouse button pressed, this event is the same thing as key press. It's like exactly the same. You also get a new variable you can check for mouse keys, mouse buttons. So if event.mouse button left, middle, right. So this right here in the mouse namespace will tell you whether you're currently clicking the left mouse button, the right mouse button, or the middle mouse button. This right here is very similar to this right here, except instead of key and code, you're using mouse button and button. Instead of using keyboard and space, you're using mouse and number. So now when I press left, I'm just going to do another cout, pressed left mouse. Okay. So every time I click, okay, I get that. You can also set it up for right mouse button. Okay. I can press left and right mouse buttons. Okay. You can also detect when things are released. So if I take this whole thing and copy this entire if statement and change this guy from pressed to released, I can say released here. It's the same exact idea as keyboard events. So now I'll get events for when I press. So watch me press left mouse button and release. Right? This is me pulling back a bow, an arrow on Hanzo's bow and then shooting it. Press right, release right. I can press both buttons at the same time and release right and release left. Okay. So that's how those events work. These events will tell you when those things are pressed. Again, we can do the same thing down here. Just like how the keyboard had SF keyboard is key pressed, and you can ask it, so say, hey, I'm currently pressing spacebar right now. Right? This is how you do whether you're currently pressing space. Or holding space. You can do the same thing for mouse. So if SF mouse is button pressed, and guess what? You get to ask for a button here. Same exact idea. Holding left mouse button, like so. Okay? This will tell me when I'm holding left mouse, just like how when I press spacebar, I have that. When I click the right mouse button, it's fine. I click the left mouse button. It's giving me events as long as I'm holding it, right? So those events are cool and all. There's another piece, though, where you can figure out where the mouse currently is. So there are two ways, again, that you can detect that. You can ask SFML, hey, where is the mouse right now? Or Windows can tell you when that mouse has moved. So let me just show you, if you want to ask SFML where the mouse is, there's a function called getPosition here. I'm just going to do a standard CI. I'm just going to print out the mouse position. Mouse is currently at. The function you can call, not an if statement. This getPosition here will return you a vector. It returns you an x and a y combined into one. It's a structure. So you do dot x to get the x position. And you can do the same thing for the y position, like so. So what I'm doing here, I'm just going to put these on two different lines so you guys can see clearly what's actually happening. So this right here is getting me calling a function called getPosition. This is a function that returns me the position of the mouse as a structure. This structure has an x and a y variable inside of it. And so if I want to print out where the mouse currently is at, inside my big loop, I'm just going to print that out every frame. So now when I do this, on the left side, you're going to see this is going to be in relation to Windows. So I'm going to go all the way to top left corner of Windows. It's 0, 0. Top right corner, 1919. Top bottom corner is 1919. This is basically 1920 by 1080. This is telling me Windows coordinates, right? So up here is going to be 0, 0 Windows. This is going to be bottom. So you can see how it's printing out exactly where the mouse is every frame. Okay? Questions on this? So this function, get mouse, get position, gives me where the mouse currently is. If you want to know where the mouse is in relation to your game, because remember, this is the top left corner of my game right here, putting my mouse. Look at the position that's giving me. This is going to give it to me in Windows position. If you want to know the position of it relative to the game, you have to pass it a window into this function. If you pass it a window into this function, it will tell you, relative to your window, where is the mouse cursor. So now when I move my mouse cursor to the top left corner of the game, it tells me that. And notice if I go off the edge of the game, it's telling me in negative coordinates now, where my mouse is. But now if I'm at 0, 0 for my game, top left corner of my game, that's 0, 0. And bottom right corner of my game is, should be like 512 by 1024. Okay. All right. You can also figure out where the mouse is with using events. So if I take this bit of code here, I'm just going to comment it out for now, meaning I'm just not going to use it. Up here, you get more events. You can also hook up into an event called mouse moved. And this thing will fire every time the mouse is moved. So if I do cout moved mouse, I'm not going to print out the position or anything like that. I'm literally just printing this out every time the mouse moves. Now I know when the mouse is moved. So I'm actually like barely moving it, but like if I move it a lot, just barely detecting the movement, right? If I move it a lot, you can see it's only sending those events really when I'm moving the mouse, right? So this event here will also tell you when the mouse has moved. If you want to know where the mouse moved to, event.mouseMove has an X and a Y inside of it. Like so. So now it's going to tell me that a mouse moved relative to the window. Right? So now I know when I'm moving the mouse. This is good if you want to know only when the player has moved the mouse and you don't care about everything else. If you want to use this event, this will tell you every time the player actually moved the mouse himself. Okay? So the lab here that I want you guys to do, there's again 6 parts to it. So I want you to write code so that when you press the mouse button, I want you to move the rectangle that you currently have to where the mouse is. Mouse button pressed, so here, not only does it include the button, but you can also print out the position here. And this is all in the web page has these. So you get the X and a Y position here. What I want you to do is I want you so that when you click, it moves your rectangle there. And the ultimate goal of this lab is so by the end of this, you have a crosshair that you can move. So it will look like so this is linked. This is going to be the homework. And then inside here, once I get past linked doing that, there's a crosshair moving. This is what the finished lab is, and you'll use your mouse wheel to zoom it in and out. Okay? So that's lab number 2. Once you're done with lab number 2, then you have homework, and that'll be it. Okay? So lab number 2, this is very similar to the concept of the keyboard. Just think about substituting a mouse instead. So let me put this up on Zool. You guys can all grab it. It's already up there, so lab number 2 and the homework are up there. So go ahead and start on that, and then